When we think of jealousy, most of us think about a little green monster. But this dark tale of two sisters whose envy for each other consumed them is very real and terrifying. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video. Welcome to my channel. And today, let's investigate how far jealousy can go in the story of two sisters, one dead and the other waiting in the shadows. In the heart of a village nestled amidst rolling hills and fields stood a quaint farm that had been in the family for generations. She found love with a man named Thomas, who was known throughout the village for his kindness and strong work ethic. She walked down the lane to Eliza's house, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. "I haven't seen you since the wedding," she added, stepping aside to let her sister in. But Clara had no intention of entering the house. She stood in the doorway, her eyes narrowed, and said in a low voice, "Why have you been talking about me behind my back?" She ran through the village, away from the farmhouse, away from the life she had once known. People whispered about the brutal murder, the young woman's life cut short, and the killer still at large. The authorities searched high and low for the culprit, but without any concrete evidence, the case grew cold. The whispers grew louder, the speculation wilder. One evening, as the sun set, casting long shadows across the town, Clara decided she couldn't live like this anymore. She had carried the burden of her crime for far too long, and the time had come for her to seek forgiveness, or so she thought. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now stood empty, a testament to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. As she stood before the house, the memories came flooding back, the good times and the bad, the secrets and the lies. She remembered the envy that had consumed her, the hatred that had poisoned her thoughts, and the terrible act that had shattered not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. Some said it was a random act of violence, others spoke of a jealous lover. And so Clara continued her journey, walking away from the village, away from her past, and into the unknown. The road ahead was long and lonely, but she was determined to walk it, to atone for her sins by living a life filled with purpose and kindness. "I am so sorry for what I have done." By morning, her body ached and her spirit was broken. Yet she remained kneeling in front of the house, a silent vigil for the sister she had lost and the peace she could never have. "I know that nothing can bring Eliza back, but I hope that you can find it in your hearts to forgive me." But as the night deepened and the stars twinkled above, there was no reply. The memories were too painful, and the guilt was too much to bear. So, as the village awoke to a new day, Clara slipped away, leaving behind the only home she had ever known. She walked out of the village, her head held high, trying to hide the tears that streamed down her face. Behind her, the village bustled with activity, the sound of children's laughter echoing in the streets. Ahead of her, the road stretched endlessly, a metaphor for the journey she had to take, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The only sound that broke the silence was the wind rustling through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of the past. But the truth remained hidden, buried under layers of deceit and despair. The weight of her crime, the chilling knowledge that she had taken a life, followed her like a shadow, making every step heavier than the last. The sound of birdsong filled the air, and the smell of fresh bread wafted from the windows. Life was going on as if nothing had happened, as if the tragedy of the previous years had never touched them. Clara, still kneeling in front of the house, felt the weight of their pitying glances and the murmurs behind their hands. She didn't know where she was going, but anywhere was better than the house of horrors she had just left. Why did you leave me out of your plans? And why does everyone want to be with you instead of me? Her words, sharp as shards of glass, cut deep into Eliza's heart. The guilt of her crime, the haunting memory of her sister's lifeless eyes, tormented her day and night. She couldn't bring herself to look at another human being, fearing that they could see through her facade. She wandered the streets like a ghost, surviving on the kindness of strangers, never staying in one place for too long. The vibrant, sociable woman had become a recluse, trapped in her own prison of guilt and fear. She couldn't believe that her sister, her own flesh and blood, would accuse her of such things. As she approached the front door, she could hear the sounds of merriment from within, the laughter of children playing and the soft murmur of adult conversation. But as she stepped out of the bus, she was greeted by the same accusing glances and hushed whispers. There she is, the one who betrayed her own sister, the one who murdered Eliza. Their words, sharp as knives, pierced her heart. She had hoped for forgiveness, but it seemed that the wound in the village was still fresh. If anyone has been unkind, it's you, spreading rumors and lies. But Clara wasn't listening. She was lost in her own thoughts, consumed by the envy and bitterness that had become her constant companions. With a deep breath, she knocked on the door, and the sound echoed in the stillness of the evening. When Eliza opened the door, she was met with the sight of her sister standing before her, her face pale and drawn in the fading light. He was a man who treated his wife like a queen and worked tirelessly to provide for her. Thomas had a steady job in construction, and they were able to save money together to buy a small piece of land outside of town, where they built their own little farmhouse. Everything seemed perfect for Eliza. She had a loving husband and a cozy home filled with the promise of a future together. Eliza tried to defend herself, but Clara was relentless, driven by the dark emotions that had taken hold of her. The struggle was brief, and soon Eliza lay on the ground, her life draining away with each passing moment. When Clara realized what she had done, the realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Fear, regret, and remorse washed over her, but it was too late. Her sister lay lifeless on the floor, and the sound of her own screams echoed in the growing darkness. The farmhouse was a symbol of the community, a place where the scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the laughter of children at play. Envy began to take root in her heart, slowly poisoning her thoughts and actions. You see, Clara had always been the center of attention. Everyone in the village knew her, and she was always the first choice for any social gathering or event. But now all eyes were on Eliza and her new life. People would come up to Clara to inquire about her sister's wedding or ask for advice on decorating their own homes. With envy as her guide, Clara began to spread rumors about Eliza, saying that she was arrogant and ungrateful. She spoke in hushed tones about how Eliza had abandoned their parents, conveniently forgetting that Eliza was the one who took care of their elderly parents while she went out to parties with friends. The villagers, once close friends of Clara, slowly drifted away from her, taking their friendship and gossip with them. As she watched the villagers turn to Eliza for advice and comfort, her envy grew into a burning hatred that threatened to consume her whole. For the sisters who lived there, their home was not just a building, but a repository of shared memories, dreams, and aspirations. It was a place where life had unfolded in its most beautiful form. They loved their house, the surrounding land, and most importantly, each other. But then everything changed. turning their idyllic life into a nightmare of suspicion, betrayal, and ultimately murder. It all started when the younger sister, Eliza, got married. But the happiness of her elder sister, Clara, was growing dimmer by the day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Clara decided she'd had enough. "What brings you here, Clara?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Clara, what are you saying?" "I haven't spoken a word against you," and that was when Clara snapped. In a fit of rage, she pulled out a knife from her purse and lunged at Eliza, who screamed in surprise and fear. In a panic, Clara fled the scene, leaving Eliza's body behind. As days turned into weeks, the wound in the village seemed to deepen. Meanwhile, Clara's life became a living hell. Years passed and the pain in the village seemed to fade, but for Clara, the torment was just beginning. She returned to the village, hoping that after all these years, people had forgotten. Determined to seek forgiveness, Clara made her way to the farmhouse where she and Eliza had grown up. With tears streaming down her face, she sank to her knees in front of the house and whispered, "I am sorry." And so Clara spent the night in the cold, hard ground in front of the house, seeking solace in the memories of her sister and praying for forgiveness. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the villagers began to stir. With a heavy heart, she knew that she could not stay in the village any longer. She had sought forgiveness, but it seemed that the only thing she had received was pity.